Hello and welcome everyone to the closing session of our virtual workshop on the future of scientific conferencing. I'm Sydney O'Connor, co-chair of the Workshop Planning Committee, and I'm here along with my colleague Jessica Gauda, who is the other co-chair of this planning committee. Today, we heard so many informative and exciting presentations, as well as really engaging discussions, and we wanted to take a moment to provide some high-level summaries of today's events to close out our day. Today, we started off with a couple of opening presentations. We had an opening welcome from Dr. Michael Lauer, Deputy Director for Extramural Research at the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Lauer took some time to reflect on his experience with scientific conferences throughout his career. He noted key features of in-person conferences, including time demands as well as cost. Additionally, he reflected on the Office of Extramural Research's experience in transitioning the NIH regional seminar from an in-person event to a virtual format during the COVID-19 pandemic, which opened up access to a much broader audience. Next, we heard from Andy Burnett, CEO of Know Innovation. Andy provided a thought-provoking plenary on stimulating scientific innovation in convenings through the use of maps, models, and simulations. He described that maps of attendees and their characteristics can help conference attendees to identify individuals that would be most interesting to connect with. Generating models can help interdisciplinary groups to formalize their thinking and spur collaborative thinking. And simulations go beyond models to allow us to build and refine our understanding in a dynamic and interactive manner.
We then had concurrent sessions in tracks 3 and 4. We examined networking, collaboration, and scientific innovation in conferences and meetings. Session 1 focused on forging social connections, formal and informal networking at scientific conferences. Ariane Wenger from ETH Zurich explained her research showing that virtual conferences provide a more sustainable, inclusive substitute for in-person conferences. Lower carbon footprint and lower costs for attendance and travel were two of the greatest benefits of virtual scientific conferences. The longstanding norms for attending in-person conferences need to be changed, and new virtual norms need to be established. There seems to be a pandemic bounce back to mainly in-person conferences, and new hybrid conference formats need to be examined in the future. Dr. Emma Jadella from Princeton University spoke about a quantitative comparison of virtual and in-person conference modalities. Conferences serve many purposes, including to form new scientific collaborations. A mathematical model was presented to predict the formation of scientific collaborations. Using data from conferences, the model assesses the likelihood of collaboration between individuals by considering their prior interactions and familiarity. Highlighting the significant impact of engineered interactions at conferences on fostering new collaborations shows that such encounters can increase collaboration probabilities substantially. Doctors Josh Gutwill and Sue Allen, co-directors of the Clean Conferencing Institute, spoke about improving informal networking using platforms, activities, and social norms. If the goal is to improve networking, it is important to utilize appropriate platforms and tools such as spatial networking and social networks to help attendees find and interact with each other. To match activities at conferences to your goals, such as utilizing coffee breaks and after mingles after a session. And finally, articulating and being clear about inclusive social norms when joining conversations and breakout groups.
The next session focused on building bridges, navigating diverse viewpoints and needs to optimize the conference experience. As summarized by the session's reactant, Nancy Kidd, balancing participant needs to optimize the experience is a very complex process, and there's no single answer, because different meeting formats make sense for different purposes. A guiding principle is to select the options that best serve the most people. Professional societies that plan conferences are often pulled in multiple directions, and there's a tension between new ideas and the difficulty of enacting them. We learned from Jessica Pokorel that not all options are financially viable from an organizational standpoint. For example, hybrid is typically not financially feasible, while virtual meetings can be low cost but may not facilitate some of the meeting goals, such as networking. When determining the modality of a meeting, we learned from Willem Skander to let the objective of the meeting drive meeting mode selection. When planning a convening, ask why you are meeting, what capabilities are available, and then decide how to meet, face-to-face, using telepresence, video conferencing, or audio conferencing alone. It's also important to consider the duration of your meeting as well as the number of attendees. Selectively invite participants and limit meeting duration when possible. An observation was made by panelist Lauren Keeney that there are lots of assumptions about what conferences are or aren't, but there's not a lot of data, and much of the practices are driven by cost. There's a need for experimentation as well as data on how to make scientific convenings more accessible, relevant, and welcoming. Our next session focused on catalysts of innovation, exploring the impact of scientific convenings on knowledge sharing and idea diffusion. In this session, Thomas Trost Hansen described how scientific events are a marketplace for the conversion of academic credibility. For example, buzz can lead to funding and arguments can lead to recognition. The marketplace is personalized and costs and outcomes differ for different individuals, for example, chairs versus attendees. This can provide a framework for discussing scientific impacts of events and how to evaluate as well as improve them. Misha Teplitsky discussed in-person conferences as a commitment to learning versus online information alone. Seeing a presentation at an in-person conference can lead to higher probability of citing that paper in the following years, even when an attendee has easy access to that paper and was already interested in reading it. Melanie Brooks presented on communication and innovation in the virtual space. Idea generation requires divergent thinking, unfocused, unregulated, and expansive thinking, followed by idea selection using convergent thinking, selective and focused thinking. In a series of studies that she conducted, virtual interaction led to worse idea generation, but not idea selection, and this effect was replicated across contexts and countries and was found to be mediated by the limited virtual environment and visual space. Finally, Janali Baruha discussed brainstorming, selection, and refinement of ideas in the virtual space across different formats. She described how virtual brainwriting groups generate more ideas than video-based brainstorming. She also described the development of an AI-driven smart meeting assistant to facilitate team ideation. In general, these presenters agreed that there is very little research done on the effects of convenings on scientific innovation and idea diffusion, and that this is an opportunity for organizations that plan and host meetings to collect data.
Session 2 in Track 4 examined virtual frontiers, transforming conference experiences with immersive technologies. Dr. Ana Cueros spoke about how we can use technologies to help create meaningful connections in context of scientific conferences, as video conferencing does have an impact on social connection and well-being. Additionally, engaging in collaborative tasks within immersive virtual reality environments significantly enhances learning outcomes. She was followed by Dr. Grace Ahn, who discussed using virtual reality to bridge physical distances and allow users to come together. She talked about her research on leveraging virtual reality to address real-world problems and influence human behavior. The panel finished with Dr. Blair McIntyre from JPMorgan Chase, who spoke about creating better ways to support hybrid events and the social network side of hybrid meetings. He emphasized the potential of hybrid conferencing to enhance remote collaboration by integrating immersive technologies, which can bridge the gap between physical and virtual interactions, fostering more effective and engaging communication. More research needs to be done on giving similar advantages of in-person events, such as networking and social bonds, to virtual events, and enabling people who go physically to an event to connect with virtual attendees. Thank you, everyone, for attending our workshop and your interest in the topic of scientific conferences and meetings. Over 500 individuals registered. I think as of this afternoon, it was about 675. The global attendance for this workshop was from a multitude of countries and time zones. For those interested, out of 524 registrants who provided a country, 71% were from the United States and 29% were from outside of the United States. There also were 29 speakers from outside the NIH with many scientific disciplines represented. For those who opted in, the carbon calculator will have the overall emission savings, carbon emission savings from this event, and we hope to incorporate that information into the proceedings. On-demand content for this workshop will be available for 12 months on the LabRoots platform, and registration will also remain open. So please encourage your interested colleagues to register so they can access those on-demand recordings. Workshop proceedings will also be made available on the OBSSR website. There will be an email that will come out tomorrow to please complete a post-workshop survey to share your thoughts and your suggestions. This will be an email sent via LabRoots. And if you have any additional feedback, please feel free to to email or contact Sydney, myself, or anyone from the NIH Planning Committee. And I would like to thank you all for attending, and this concludes our virtual workshop on the future of scientific conferencing. Thank you, everyone.